Hello and welcome back to Missionary Time with Mr. Brad and Miss Norma. We are going to hear some more about Hudson Taylor today, and I think he's actually going to make it to China. That's what you told me.
I don't know. It's
I
a
hope
slow
so.
boat
Yes,
to China.
I know. It's a slow boat. So, before we get to that, we're going to talk about one of our missionaries that we support here at Hagerman Baptist Church.
Not in China.
Not in China, no. He's in a country called Samaria. His name is Sammy, and his wife's name is, I believe, Falil is how you say it, or something to that effect. And I apologize, I don't mean to mess her name up. But she's from that country, as is he. And so that's a little bit different when you think about it. We think about sending missionaries from the United States and going to other countries to teach. Well, Sammy and his wife were born in this area, and I'll tell you where the area is in just a second. And they came and they got some education, and they went back to be missionaries in their own home country. Mm-hmm. And can you think what would be the advantages of going to your own home country?
You know the language, you know the culture,
Yeah.
and you have contacts.
Just like, yeah, you have people that you know, that's right. Just like that we talked about last week, the young man, the Bruchtold son, is going back to Germany where he grew up, and so he was familiar with that. These people even more so because this is their home country. Mm-hmm. And the country that they live in is called Samaria, and it is in an area of the world that we would call the Middle East. And there are a lot of little countries that are very close together, Israel and Egypt. And Egypt's not a little country, but it's close by, and Lebanon and some different countries like that, Syria, places that are considered the Middle East. In his little country of Samaria, there are people there that have not heard of or don't really understand the message of Jesus and how Jesus came to die for our sins and rose again. And so one of the things that they do in Samaria is they try to hold events. And in fact, I think if you look at that picture, you really can't see it very well, but if you were able to see that picture really well, you'd see that there are a bunch of children, and they're all sitting around. Some of them have Santa hats on, which is kind of strange, but they're having a Christmas meeting. And they're explaining Christmas, and they're not talking about Santa, but they're talking about the fact that Jesus came to earth at Christmas time, and so they get these big events together. And we were reading one of his newsletters, his prayer letters, and he was talking about having the Christmas meeting that they had just gone past, and that they were planning to have Easter meetings, and that they were planning to have a
Women's meeting?
A Mother's Day, women's type meeting, and so they were making all these plans. Well, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
They had troubles with the virus, with the COVID virus, and so some of their things got canceled, and some of them there was travel problems. But these are all things that the Barhams have to think about as they prepare for their ministries.
They were planning on coming back to the States.
We'll get to that in just a second. Hang on that. You're
My
right.
turn to get ahead of the story.
But yes, we're going to talk about that in just a second. One of the things I want to talk about when you could pray for these folks is that when they've come back to the United States, whenever they've come back, they've talked about purchasing property to build a church. And they were talking about that there was still progress being made on that. So we need to still continue to pray for them. They need, I think she said, $800,000 to build this, to have property and build this church. And so that's one of the goals that they have, is to be able to have a place to meet. That's their own meeting place, and buying land and all that sort of thing. I remember him talking about last time he was here, buying land. Now, what Ms. Norma was just saying is that in that letter also they talked about wanting to come to the United States in the month of May. Well, May has passed, and I don't know if they made it to the United States or not, because there were some travel restrictions and things like that. But they were going to be here for
Till September.
September, yes, they said, and they were going to be here talking. That they had 16 new churches that they were going to be able to talk to, and so they were pretty excited about that. So, if you want to pray for the Barhams, I'll show you the picture one more time. 2 things for sure. 3 things that I can think of. Pray for their meetings. Pray for their meetings, their get-togethers, that they're able to do those, and that they can spread the gospel that way. And then pray for their travel plans. That's important too, that they be able to come back to the United States and talk to their churches that support them. And then thirdly, pray for their church building, that they can afford to build the building and buy the land and all that sort of thing, and get that all taken care of, so they can have a place to meet that's their very own, and a good place like that. So remember to pray for Sammy Barham, and I will just say Sammy and his wife. They have they have 4 children. They're adult children, though they're not little kids at home, and pray for them and their family. So that's where we're going to go with that. So how about Hudson Taylor?
Oh, when we left Hudson, do you remember? He was on the ship, on his way to China. and they were kind of stuck in the water. We would call it dead in the water, because they had a sailboat. And there's no motor on the sailboat. They were going nowhere. They depended on the wind to blow them. And the sails would catch the wind, and they were able to turn the sails with the rudders and kind of direct where the boat would go. Well, they were able to avoid the rocky crashing into the rocks one time, and they were so thankful to God. Well, they were getting near the rocks and going to crash again, and they had no way to avoid it because there was no wind to kind of catch and take them away from it. Well, Hudson was talking to the captain, and the captain's like, we've done everything we can, everything possible. And Hudson said, no, I don't think so. There's still one more thing we can do. And the captain's like, what? What can we do? Had you figured it out? Hudson said, there's 4 Christians on board. There's 4 of us. And the captain was one of them. Said, we can each go back to our cabins and get on our knees, and we can pray that the Lord would send a breeze, a strong wind. And the captain's like, you're right. Like, oh. Sometimes we get so caught up in the here and the now and what's happening, and that we have to solve it. It has to be of our own abilities, that we forget to just stop. Just stop and talk to God and ask Him to take care of it. And that's immediately what the 4 Christians did. And they went back to their cabins, and they got down on their knees, and they prayed, and they asked God specifically. It wasn't a general prayer. Oh, thank you, God. Hi, how you doing? No. They said, we're going to crash. Please send a wind to save us. And they begged God. Do you think God heard their prayer? Do you think God was listening? Do you think God cares? God does care. And God did hear their prayer. And God did answer their prayer. And this is how He did it. Hudson came out and of his cabin because he thought, he prayed and he prayed. He thought, I know the Lord's going to answer. He got to talk to Him. He doesn't audibly go, Hudson. No, that's not how God answers prayer. But when we're praying, God has a way of touching our hearts and letting us know. And he went out and he talked to the sailor there, and he said, the big main sail, he says, you need to let it down. Why in the world would I do that? Are you an idiot? It's a lot of work. And for what reason? There's no breeze going on. No, hurry up. Let it down. Please. Don't you see? Oh, there's a little bit of breeze. That's just a... why would I do that? Hurry! Hurry! And the man's like, Hudson's like, prompting him and hurrying. And fine. And he goes over there and starts working. And as he's working, the wind is getting stronger and stronger. And so more of the sailors rush and start doing it. And as they're doing it, the wind is pushing them closer and closer to those dangerous rocks. And they get that main sail down just in time to go whoosh and take them away from the rocks. Do you think that was lucky? There is no such thing as luck. It's not something we as Christians should say, oh, good luck, or, oh, wow, that was lucky. No. God's in control. There is no such thing as fate or luck. It's all God. And we should make sure that we give Him the due and the honor to His name. So, Hudson had learned that God was in charge. God could take care of him. God could provide. In England, on the sea, and in China, where he was going to go. Well, sailing to China was, wow, that's a quick trip. Boom, you can get right there. No. The phrase, a slow boat to China, is true, because back then it really did take a long time. 5 months. 5 long months. And when Hudson finally arrived in China, and he arrived in the city of Shanghai, he was so thankful, probably to get off the boat. That'd be me. But he was like, I'm in China. Yes. And he was just so thankful. And he looked around at all the people. And wow, did they look different? Nothing like him. He's just staring at them. And they had the long dark hair. And they dressed different. And their skin was different. But that didn't matter to him. He was so thankful to be there. And he wanted to rush right out and start telling them about Jesus. But he was listening to all of them talk. And you know what? He didn't understand a word they were saying. So he knew he couldn't tell them about Jesus. So he had to get a room, so he went out right away and found a place to stay. And it was with another missionary. And then Hudson had to learn the language so he could talk to people. And he found a very kind Chinese man. And day after day after day after day, and I mean this took months, Hudson sat and learned the Chinese language, just the beginning. He was not an expert at all. And he would sit until his tongue hurt trying to make these sounds come out of his mouth. And he would look at the characters for the Chinese, how to read it. Like, what in the, his head hurt. And he would get so frustrated and discouraged that I'm never going to learn this. But he kept at it. Perseverance. Doing the right thing.
What's that perseverance?
You keep at something.
Oh, okay.
You keep doing it.
Wow.
Even when you feel like you're going to quit, why bother? Why should I keep doing this? What's it matter? I don't want to do this. No, he didn't want to do this. This is hard. But he kept at it. He kept doing it. And he got to the point where he could talk to people. He could go out. And he could kind of read the street signs and stuff and figure out where he kind of was and wouldn't get lost. That's pretty good. And he went out and he started talking to people. And he started telling them about Jesus. He was really excited. I mean, way excited to do this. And so you know what he would do? He would get a bunch of food. He would get some blankets to make sure he'd stay warm. He would get some Bibles, New Testaments, and some tracts for people who could read. He would get his doctor bag and some medicine. And not only would he go around where he lived, he would hop in a boat. You're like, hop in a boat? What would happen in a boat? There was a great big river. Today it's got a different name. But back then it was called the Yangtze River. And he could hop on the boat and he could go up and down this river. And it is one of the largest rivers in the world. And it could take him thousands of miles to visit millions of people.
Wow.
China has a lot of people. And the potential to visit all those people. And he could go and he could see them in all these tiny, tiny little places and villages. And he could get off. And when he got off, some of those people just kind of like, ooh. And looked at him. They've never seen a foreigner before. And a foreigner is someone from another country. Just like when he landed in China, and he thought, whoa, he'd never seen all these Chinese people before, their skin color, their dress, their hair. These people had never seen Hudson Taylor before. A white person. Some of them ran and hid. They were scared of him. Some of them stared at him and would touch him, touch his hair. He had short hair. They all had long hair. His hair was different color. It was curly. His skin was different. His eye color was different. He dressed different. Ooh, look. But you know what? I've got to peek ahead to the next one just to double check. Yeah. He was really, they were curious, and they just wanted to know. And so some of them would really sit and listen because they were just curious. Well, they'd never heard about Jesus before. All these thousands and thousands of people had never heard about Jesus. And here was his opportunity to tell them. And he was so thankful. But even some of them were like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And they would just listen. Many were saved. But even more of them never had a doctor come to check on them. And they were sick and in pain. And they were very, very grateful for the opportunity that he had as a doctor. So that made them more grateful for him, for them to listen to what he had to say. So he could minister to the body, and then he had the opportunity to minister to their soul. What a great pairing. All that training in England is paying off. Well, he and another friend would travel together sometimes. And they would travel on what's called these little wheelbarrows. Can you imagine? Boom, 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 traveling in that? And they would go and they would visit in different places. So he wasn't always on a boat. And they would travel. And they thought they would go to this one town. And they were traveling there, and someone said, "Stop! You don't want to go there." They're like, well, why not? I said, no, this town is evil. It is controlled by a lot of really wicked soldiers. And the place is just totally wicked, and they will do terrible things. You turn around. Go the other way. Just turn around. And Hudson looked at his friend, and they looked at each other. They didn't even need to talk. And they said, even wicked men need to hear about Jesus. Thank you for telling us and warning us, but we're going to continue. And the man, he thought they were crazy. So Hudson and his friend continued on. And they hadn't even arrived in the city when the soldiers came and saw them. One of the soldiers grabbed his friend and immediately started beating him up. And then the other soldiers came and grabbed Hudson and started beating him up and grabbing him around the neck. And the crowd cried out, "Kill him! Kill him!" And that's where I have to leave you.
And this is not very good because we don't get to do this again next week. We have to wait 2 weeks to find out what happens to Hudson and his friend. Our man who takes care of all of the filming of this is Pastor Caleb, and Pastor Caleb has to go to junior girls camp next week and be are you the dean or the program chairman?
Yeah,
And
he's
so
not a camper.
No, he's not a camper. He does have 3 daughters and a wife, or 4 daughters and a wife.
I was going to say he lost a
4
daughter.
daughters and a wife, but so he's be good at junior girls camp, but he's not going to be here, and so we'll skip a week, but then we'll come back that following week and hear another story. So
Find out what happens.
you have to wait that long. You could check on the internet, see what happens.
No.
Anyway, it was good to have another story today, and so we'll see you next time. Not next. No, it'll be next time. Just 2 weeks. Bye.